chuckles. I'm in danger. 250 can possibly go to the outside. He does go to the outside of Ricky Harden. Tries a slide draft him. Harden goes up the track. Now back down to the bottom. Gets a huge push from Tommy Ryan at the start finish. It's going to be Thomas George.
Running the high line, trying to make that
got
pass.
loose off turn 4.
In the grass goes the 6 car, and they were side by side, 2 by 2 here.
Still Scott Eckler winning the last race of the season and the championship.
Jeff Ford definitely getting the championship for season 2.
Give it up for Thomas George, winning the race and the championship. George overshoots the corner. Scott puts that car just where he needs to on the middle. It's going to be a drag race through the kick. Last week, after a late race caution forced a split decision for the leaders, it was Adam Jersky who took the risk of pitting for 4 new fresh Goodyears. With 8 laps to go, he stormed through the field and took the lead from Scott Eckridge to snatch his first points-paying PGRL win. This week, what's old is new again as we're back for another race on the old worn-out slick surface here in Hotlanta. Can the old guard use this track to their advantage, or will the new guys sweep all the top spots? Join us to find out everything here in the Everything Gets Better with Age 250, presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch. Live from Atlanta Motor Speedway, you're watching the Virtual Grip Network. I'm Austin Belke, joined by J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe in the booth with our director Ryan Seneker in the production trailer. J.R., what can you tell us about this old Atlanta Motor Speedway?
Well, Austin, this version of Atlanta Motor Speedway is a 1.54-mile quad oval that has 24 degrees of banking in the corners. One of the main characteristics of this place is that this track surface is very worn and abrasive, like you touched on a minute ago. That means tire wear will be big here tonight. Drivers will have to manage that throttle pedal if they want any kind of rear grip as we get into some of these runs. And that particular reason is why drivers love this place so much and enjoy racing here so much. It is a driver's track, and the driver can make a big difference in the car speed and the lap time consistency as we turn multiple laps. On top of that, this place is very wide, up to 55 feet in width, giving the drivers plenty of room to move around in the corners, search for some grip, and try to make those passes. Austin, this is my favorite version of Atlanta and one that has produced some of the most memorable finishes in NASCAR history. Given what we've seen here so far in this PGRL season, I think we're in store for another one.
I couldn't agree more, JR. Let's take a quick second here to talk to tonight's Mayhan Speed Laboratories. You almost finished last pole winner, Creighton Carter. Creighton, you got a copy?
Yes, I do.
Creighton, first off, a split decision here. This could sway people's opinions on you. Are you glad we're at this version of Atlanta, or would you prefer we're at the new one?
I'm actually going to say I'm glad I'm here. Yeah, I prefer this one to the new one. That's
I feel like a lot of people agree with you on that one. Second question, what's going to be your game plan to make sure you're up front all race, especially there at the end? This place is really abrasive on tires.
Well, I'm going to try and save the tires as best I can and try and maintain track position, but a lot of people like to go hard early on, and so I'm just going to have to stay out of trouble with that.
Taking the old, I'll see you guys in 20 laps approach. You love to see it, Creighton. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, buddy.
All right, thank you.
That was Creighton Carter, driver number 89 car, starting from the pole position today. And Kenny, I think while we still got some time for us, you've got some keys.
Yeah, guys, so tonight, kind of interesting. Normally we go half distance of a regular Cup race, but the Cup race in real life was actually a 400-miler. This one actually based on a 500 miles, so it's a 250-mile, 163-lap event, one of the longer ones of the season, and 7 sets of tires. So in order to split everything evenly, you need to get at least 23 laps under a set of tires, and I'm betting these drivers are going to be wanting fresh tires about 5 to 10 laps into a run with how abrasive this surface is, so tire strategy will be huge here. 46 to 48 laps on a tank of fuel, so at least 3 pit stops will be based on fuel alone. But again, tires will be at a premium. And the keys to the race tonight, smoothing the tire cliff. Everybody's tires are going to wear out. Who's going to have a little bit of rubber saved up? You might see some drivers go hard and then fall off. You'll see some comers and goers tonight for sure. Searching for clean air. Clean air is always a big deal with these race cars, especially at the 1.5 miles. We're going to have a little bit of drafting early on in the run. People will start spreading out, and then it's going to come down to switching up your line, getting some clean air on the front of the nose of that car, helping the handling as much as possible. And lastly, making it work on bottom or top, passing cars from multiple grooves. Some drivers will see you running a lane successfully. They'll take that lane away from you. You got to get creative, run somewhere else. And patience is going to be the name of the game when it comes to extending your tire life and making passes and getting through the field.
Thanks, Kenny. Before we get to racing here, let's see if we can't take a look at our points for this championship season. Vincent Crowe is still the man up on the top of the boards here for points overall. Michael Krobach, a strong run in second. And after that, it starts to get extremely close. You've got 3 guys all tied for the 4th position. Mike Rasmus, Adam Jersky off his win last week. Scott Eckridge doing really nice. And Jeff Ward still hanging in there, JR.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an extremely tight points battle so far, and some of the guys that I'm looking at tonight would be Michael Krobach and Brian Yazik. He won the last race that PGRL ran on this configuration, so those guys definitely looking to make up some points. Krobach finished 3rd here the last time, and we know how good he is at saving tires in the long run, guys.
Thanks, JR. Looking further through the points from 11th to 20th place, you've got newcomers, guys like Christopher, Jake Stilvia, Isaiah Dupre, kind of the old guard. Then you got Kevin Bartelt down there. For the amount of bad luck he's had this season, kind of surprising to see him not further down in the points, but it just shows you how good of a run he can have because he just seems to hang in there.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen guys, Doug Roth, he's 15th in points. Kevin Bartelt has had a lot of bad luck, 16th in points. Yeah, just a lot of these guys, they're looking to rebound. Obviously, in this series during the season, they have 2 races that they can throw away, 2 drop weeks. So definitely things are going to shake up a little bit after that, but these guys have got to start having some good finishes that are on this 11th through 20th place in point standings right now.
Certainly, as we look further down through the points, there's 2 big opportunities to earn points here each and every week in the Pretty Good Racing League. Not only do they count up your points towards the end of the night with your final finishing position, there's also stage points being given away. But Kenny, it's not like the normal stage racing we're seeing in NASCAR these days. There is no caution, but still, though, all the top 10 guys do get points.
Yep, top 10 will get points, and the points will be allocated at the end of lap 82 this evening. So essentially when we cross halfway. And I like that. It doesn't disturb the flow of the race, but yet it's going to force some strategy. Some drivers will try to stay up there, and it's really going to come down to what kind of run are we having at that time. Is it what's the the status of everybody's tires at that time if we're on a long green flag run. At that time, will somebody stay out a little bit long to get some stage points and then sacrifice the track position later, or will they pit early, get the track position later, and plan on winning the race?
Transitioning to look at the overall, as John Hine would like to call it, the ego sheet here, the practice times for this practice session. It's been just about going on right now for an hour and a half. Topping the charts, you can see Jeff Ward with a 36.61. Interesting to see Jeff Ward out there with such a hot lap, considering, JR, he's one of those guys that usually goes out there and just kind of lets the race car and the race track come to him on some of these longer runs.
No, exactly right, Austin. We're used to seeing him come up through the pack at his own pace and getting there about halfway and then going toward the front. But I think with the rough season that he's had at the beginning of season 1 here, he's looking to get things turned around. He's probably going to be charging harder than what we normally see him do.
Practice now comes to an end. Checkered flag here in the practice session. We'll now give you folks at home the starting lineup for today's race. Starting on pole, it's the man who won the Mahan Speed Laboratories You Almost Finished Last Pole Award. Creighton Carter is going to roll off on the inside of the front row. Kevin Bartelt is going to start to his outside. Alex Gretz is going to roll off in third with Cosmin Ioannidis starting to his outside in fourth. Christopher is going to line up in fifth, followed by Cody Dempster in sixth. Big Joe Hassert's going to start in seventh position. position, followed by another Joe to his outside, Joe Branch in 8th, as I Pray and Doug Roth round out your top 10 starting positions. Woody Mahan's going to roll off in the 11th position, followed by Brian Yazik to his outside, Saeed Ferris and Ryan Rose complete row number 7. Michael Krobach and Mike Rasmus complete in all Mike row number 8, followed by Jordan Harnish, who starts in 17th, and Vincent Crow in 18th. Scott Eckridge is going to line up in 19th position, followed by last week's winner, who rounds out the top 20, Adam Jersky, JR.
Yeah, starting 21st tonight, we have Jake Sylvia. Alongside him at 22nd will be Colton Salick. Starting 23rd tonight is Shane Parrish. Starting 24th will be Aiden Gretz. William Farmer, he'll roll off in the 25th position. Alongside him at 26th will be Angel Jamie. Rolling off in 27th is Will Farmer. Starting alongside him at 28th is Joshua O'Connor. Row 15, we've got Brian Greenlee starting 29th and Tim Weinkoff rolling off in 30th. 31st place will be Will George, and starting 32nd and 33rd tonight will be Jeff Ward, Thomas George, your last 2 champions in the PGRL series.
Thanks, Jared. For those folks of you at home kind of curious how the starting grid is set up, it is first and foremost an inversion of the finishing results from last week, and then it's everybody racing this week who didn't race last week, and then rounding out the field. The last 2 spots are the past 2 defending Pretty Good Racing League champions. This season, of course, it's Jeff Ward and then Thomas George. So next season, Thomas George will likely line up second to last on the grid, unless, of course, if he wins this championship as well. Who knows? It's anybody's game still at this point. iRacing Pace Car has its lights out as we get ready to go green flag racing here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Waiting for Barney the Flagman. iRacing Pace Car makes the hard left turn down pit road. Green flag is out and we're racing here, and the Everything Gets Better with Age 250 presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch. Fantastic start there for Creighton Carter, our leaders. He leads the field down onto the backstretch. Kevin Bartelt going a little bit high, wide, and handsome there. Losing out on a good couple of spots there right now. Just one to Alex Greitz as they go down the backstretch and into turn 3.
Yeah, Creighton Carter, he tried to break the graft a little bit. I saw down the back straightaway. It was a cool move. It didn't pay off for him. Looks like Alex Greitz is actually making the move and leading this first lap.
Strong move by Alex around the outside there. That was a phenomenal job by him to go ahead and use that momentum there. Get around the outside there of pole sitter Creighton Carter. Now looking at Cosmin Ioannidis all up over his rear end, trying to see if he can't get a run. Almost got him a little bit too loose there on the exit of the corner.
Yeah, that's a very vulnerable position for the cars up off of turn 2. Very easy to get loose right there. There's some bumps through 1 and 2 that the car does not like. And if you over throttle or get a car right up behind you on corner exit, this thing can get really loose really fast.
As they go down the front stretch now into turns 1 and 2, you see Cosmin Ioannidis and the number 94 car down to the inside of the number 89. That's Creighton Carter still holding on to those spots. Looks like though as they exit turn 2, he's going to get past here. It's the driver number 24 car. Cody Dempster got a pretty big run there on the inside.
We got some cars getting together on the backstretch, guys. Couple on the apron, and we stay green. But Mike Rasmus, one of the heavy hitters with heavy damage with an inside impact there, and that was another car that I missed, hit the inside wall as well.
That's a real shame there. This is one of those Mike Rasmus kind of tracks where he just lets the car come to him, kind of races the track for the bigger part of the race, and always someone you're going to have to reckon with if you want a chance at the checkered flag here tonight. You see one car there stopped on the replay down to the inside. Looked like that was Woody Mahan in the 84 car.
Yeah, another bad run for Woody here. He's definitely looking to try to get his season turned around. Bad luck continuing from last season, as we saw. So definitely going to have to keep battling on, trying to get that turned around for this year.
Up at the front of the field, it's still the 17 car of Alex Gretz. He's got Kevin Bartelt just behind him. Cosmin Ioannidis, though, looking down to the inside of the 26 car, battling side by side as they come off of turn 2. That's Ioannidis on the inside. One of the newcomers here to PGRL, kind of taking this series by storm. He's been really fast, I think catching a lot of guys by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Been extremely aggressive and using it to his benefit, making passes on these guys early, getting out front, getting that clean air for the most part. But he's also been able to show that if he gets himself in trouble, gets into a wreck or a spin, he's been able to come back through the field. So he's able to make his way to the front no matter what happens in these races.
Riding on board here with Cody Dempster, you're seeing a look from his roof out over the hood of that race car. I'd like to take a second ride. If we could go look at Doug Roth, he just made a move there on our pole sitter Creighton Carter. He's got that number 55 car. Brian Yazik in tow just behind him. Brian goes ahead, dispatches the number 89 car just in the same.
Yeah, Brian Yazik, he's moving up really fast. He started at 12th, so only about midfield, already up in the 7th place. Like I said, he's the guy that won the last race on this configuration here for PGRL, so I look for him to continue to move forward.
How about Colton Salick? You talk about starting mid-pack there for Brian Yazik. Colton Salick already up to mid-pack. He started all the way back in the 22nd position. He's already gained about 10-plus spots this far in the race. I'd be interested to see, Kenny, maybe he's using up too much of the grip on those tires a little bit too early here, only on lap 8.
Well, I mean, it could be, but it also could be some drivers are just naturally fast here, and sometimes you'll just pick a lap time or a feel for the lap. And if that just happens to be fast and you know it's still going to save tire, then maybe you still will gain spots throughout the field. I mean, there's some drivers that do have a talent for doing that, and maybe he's one of them.
Interested to see there, too. Colton Salick going all the way up in the higher lane, a lot higher than some of the other drivers have been going and doing it a lot more regularly than most of his competitors.
Yeah, absolutely, Austin. That was one thing that I was seeing, and that makes it easier when you do have some decent speed to just drive right by these guys. So if they're all running the lower middle lanes, if you're up top, you've got open track, you're able to make those moves. The only thing he has to be careful with is it's very easy on the top side to over throttle on corner exit and start to wear out those rear tires.
Taking a look back towards the front end of the field, you've got Cosmin Ioannidis still in that second position. Third position goes from Kevin Bartelt to the way of the 24 car, Cody Dempster. There's our leader spinning on the inside. That's Alex Gretz there down in the apron right. Can we get a look at that? Oh, spinning up into traffic. Looks like he got in the outside wall. That's got all the markings to me of maybe a computer going out or a steering wheel kind of losing itself. I had the misfortune of doing it here in 2020. My computer had a little bit of a glitch there, a screen freeze, and I just went straight into that second part of the dog leg, and that's likely what happened to Alex Gretz.
Yeah, very possible, and this is virtual racing that we're doing, but you do have mechanical issues that can plague you. That can be your wheel, that can be your internet, that can be a number of things. So there is a factor of mechanical type issues that will happen. But the good thing with Aiden there is that he was able to get his car towed before a caution was brought out, so we continued to stay green flag out here.
Interestingly enough, Cosmin Ioannidis now inherits the lead. Going back to the 44 car, he's been kind of making really good progress up the field. Just behind him is a driver we talked about making exceptional progress up the field. The driver in the number 91 car, Colton Salick. Cy Ferry's up there in that 44 car, all the way up right now, knocking on the back door here of a podium position, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Safe's moved up very good. I mean, started 13th up to 4th, and he's continuing to try to make ground here on Bartelt, taking the outside through 3 and 4.
Yeah, move Cy Ferris there now up into the podium positions. He's going to snatch third away from Kevin Bartelt. Just behind him, there's a side-by-side battle between Chris Stouffer. Started 5th. He's running in that same exact spot. Down to the inside. Colton Salick getting really loose as they come off the corner. Brian Yazik had to jab the brake just to make sure he didn't run into the back of him.
Yeah, and what we're seeing right now, guys, it's lap 13 in this race. This is where you start to notice your tire wear happening. You start to feel the car change on how it's driving. Both in turn 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, they handle completely different. But the thing that drivers love so much about this track, you see the great racing that we're seeing. You see all the multiple lanes as we go off in the turn 1. Everybody's taking a little bit different approach to each corner right now.
So, Kenny, a little bit of a mathematical question for you. If you don't have it handy, I won't blame you. With these guys getting 7 different sets of tires this race, or 7 changes rather, how many laps can they go before they are kind of in the green in terms of needing to change tires, or at least being able to change them?
Well, it is going to be 7 sets total, 6 in the pits, and you're going to have to go about 23 laps. That's about the sweet spot per set in order to split the race up evenly. So yeah, I mean, if we were to have a caution now, it'd be really iffy. You'd probably see a split decision amongst the field as far as when they pit. But so far, the race has had a relatively green flag look to it. But yeah, you're starting to see the comers and goers. Now, I wanted to ask JR a question here too. We've talked about how abrasive the track is, but how about the bumps and how they affect these cars and how rigid these cars are.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kenny. We talked about it a little bit earlier, the bumps through turns 1 and 2 especially, and it's more toward the middle to the bottom of the track. Those bumps can really upset this car, and it can kind of catch you unexpectedly. So the car is rigid. It's very tied down to the racing surface. That gives you a lot of downforce and a lot of aerodynamic benefits, but it can affect you from the handling side, the suspension side of the car. When you're going over those bumps, the one thing you have to do is try to hit those bumps as close to straight as possible. If you've got a lot of wheel turned into it, when you hit it, the cars will bounce and possibly get sideways. Another aspect is the throttle. If you throttle up slightly before those bumps, the rear end can come around very quickly, and you notice that the most off of turn 2. We've already seen a couple of guys in this race get extremely loose off of 2.
Looking right now at this battle here, the drivers you're looking at, that is the driver of the number 43 car there, Doug Roth. He's got Colton Salick just behind him, and last week's, I believe, second place runner-up finisher there, Scott Eckridge, in 9th position. So all these drivers started respectively 10th, 22nd, and 19th position. So again, Colton Salick, Scott Eckridge making really good progress up through the field. And don't dare turn your nose there at Doug Roth, up 3 positions, kind of just taking this race as it comes to him. Up ahead, side-by-side battle between Brian Yazik on the inside, Chris Stouffer on the outside in the 7 car.
Yeah, Colton's our biggest mover so far, up 14 positions and still moving forward there in that white number 91 Chevrolet. So he's making good progress. But JR, that's another question I'd like to bring up to you. If you start deep in the field at a track like this, you want to get that track position back as soon as you can, but at the same time, you might. It's very likely that you overdrive, at least in the first run of the race.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I'm okay with the driver overdriving slightly during that first run. It kind of gives them a gauge on how the tire wear is going to be throughout this race. But you definitely don't want to overdo it, because instead of gaining positions, you're going to end up losing. You see Colton Salick actually sliding up a little bit through 1 and 2 there, getting really close to Doug Roth. Those guys are able to continue on, but you see that allowed Scott Eckridge to get to his outside. So at the same time, you're trying to save tires, but anytime you make a move, they need to be calculated moves so you don't lose a spot like we saw here.
Yeah, move for 4th position, closer to the front. Saeed Fares in the 44 car, around the outside of Kevin Bartel. That's going to go ahead and move Saeed Fares, up into that 3rd position. Those two still side by side as they go through turns 1 and 2.
And guys, are we surprised to see how close the field still is 21 laps into this race? Did we think that it was going to be more spread out at this point?
I honestly thought that it would be, Kenny, at this point of the race. So you're close to halfway through a fuel run at this point. Your tires definitely have been abused a little bit. Even if you've been taking care of them, the car is going to completely change how it's handling. So I'm very surprised that these guys have been able to hang on as close as what they have. I mean, our top 10 is within 3 seconds right now, and you just normally don't see that at this version of Atlanta. So these guys doing a great job. A lot of guys obviously taking care of their equipment.
That last time, coming off of turn 2, Scott Eckridge was able to make a move there on the 55 car of Brian Yazik. That was for the 6th position. Yazik got really loose coming off of turn 2. Battle on your screen here. Looks like a 7 car Chris Stouffer. He's got Scott Eckridge down to his inside. Eckridge still trying to make his way up through the field. Again, Eckridge started all the way back in 19th position, so right now trying to make that 13, now 14 spots almost as they head through turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about what we're seeing from Scott is that he's able to run anywhere on this racetrack. We've seen him at the very bottom making passes as well as using that high side. So he's got a good feel for his car, and you notice that Brian Yazik there was trying to follow him and try to learn a little bit of what Scott was using.
Now, JR, just behind this group of cars battling right here, as you see Scott Eckridge there get a little bit of loss of momentum. So you see Chris Stouffer go around the outside. Just behind these guys is the 91 car, Colton Salick. He hasn't made a whole lot more progress since kind of making it into the top 10. Is that kind of a red flag for you to say maybe he's burned up his stuff on those tires?
I definitely think he probably felt something from the car, from that tire wear, so he's decided to slow down, only run the car to what it's able to give him, not overstep the boundaries. So that's actually showing what a smart driver will do. If you have abused that car, do not overdrive it. Otherwise, you can put yourself in a very bad position. Right now, he's kind of settled in to that 8th position. He's kind of got a gap in front and behind him, so no need to do anything crazy. Just trying to finish out this run, get some new tires on, and make adjustments with your driving style from there.
Yeah, you're looking at here, that's the number 19 car of Farmer Jr. And Sylvia down there to its inside. This is further down in the field. This is for about 13th place on back. You see all 4 of those cars clumped right up together. And Kenny, just ahead of these guys is your best buddy, Mr. Michael Krobach. Just made his way around Doug Roth in turns 1 and 2 to snag himself a top 10.
Yeah, and Krobach's one of the most patient drivers in the field. He's really good at conserving his stuff and having something for the ends of these races. But I've been tracking lap times throughout the entire field. Just about everybody is now running laps outside of the 32-second mark now, 32-second ones or worse. A few drivers occasionally running a 32.0, but the tire is still falling off here over halfway through the tire run, and they haven't quite plateaued yet. The leader's running a 32.30. There's definitely drivers faster than him as well, so I'm looking for some comers and goers here.
I'd like to take a moment to talk to the driver that you'd see eventually come into shot here if the camera stayed still long enough. That is defending series champion Thomas George. He started all the way back into 33rd position, dead last on the field. He's made his way all the way up into 22nd position. And Kenny, I had to look at his car, both with the far chase and the rear chase, to make sure he didn't have any damage, because I would have assumed he would have at least cracked the top 20 by almost 30 laps into this race.
Yeah, I think Thomas is really being conservative. I mean, if you look up ahead, Jeff Ward, who started right next to him, the other champions provisional, if you will, he's only 2 spots up ahead of him. So I think these guys are just being really calculating, driving as the champions they are, and just being patient with it, and just picking them off one by one. You see Jeff Ward there. We've got a shot of him. He's working on, looks like that's Will Farmer in front of him. And but yeah, I think they're taking their time. I think this is the track. We saw Jeff Ward was top of the board in practice, and I know practice times don't mean everything, but Jeff's fast everywhere, and so is Thomas George. So I don't think I'd be worried too much if I were either of these drivers. They're just taking their time.
Yeah, Jeff Ward right now making his way slowly but surely around the inside there of Will Farmer, the elder of the 2 farmers here in this series. And JR, I'd like to take a moment to talk to say something at least that you told us all a while ago in one of our other leagues, and that's the fact that you don't have to pass a guy in one corner. You can take multiple corners to go ahead and pass him, especially if you're in the preferred lane, or at least the lane you'd rather be in. And Jeff Ward really shows that week in and week out, especially exemplifying that rule today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing you want to do as a driver, especially when you're trying to save tires and take care of your equipment, is just run at your pace. So if you're in the lane that you want to be in when you come up to pass a guy, you just continue to run your pace. If the guy wants to continue to race you hard, let him do that. Don't try to overpower your car or get it upset in any way. Eventually, they're going to wear their tires out racing you, and you're just going to go on by anyway.
Kenny, I hear you've got some interesting news there about Colton Salick in the 91 car.
Yeah, Colton, we talked about him. He was charging through the field, got all the way up to 8th place, and just poof, disappeared. He disconnected. So it must have been some kind of internet or computer problem, and that's going to be a double whammy for him, because I think he's missed at least 1 race, and now is going to have a poor finish to this one. That drops him down to 28th and actually joins 5 other drivers who have either are out or are multiple laps down. So a decent bit of attrition despite no cautions.
Got a battle for the lead here brewing these last couple laps. Cody Dempster, the driver in 2nd position, trying to steal this thing away from Cosmin Ioanniscu around the outside. He's got a lot of momentum. We'll see if Cosmin slams the door on him. Not quite. He's going to race him pretty clean thus far. Cody's going to make a move to the outside, and this is right about that point. That spotter's going to tell you you've either got a car high or a car low. We'll see if Cody Dempster can complete the pass this time in turns 3 and 4. About right there's the call that he's clear. He's going to slot down in front of Cosmin. He's going to lead this lap, move that 24 car now up to the front of the field. Whoa, he slams the outside wall.
Yeah, it's very easy to do there going through the quad oval on the exit right before you get into turn one. Very easy to misjudge that and get into the wall. You see that actually cost him. He had to run high there, and Cosman was able to just drive right by him.
Yeah, that last time, 2 times ago, I should say, coming off at turn 2, Saif Farah's got in the outside wall. That dropped him back pretty heavily, but now you can see he's almost gone ahead and made up all that ground back to the leaders. The driver to his inside battling for that podium position. The driver number 70 car, Scott Eckridge, you can see him down underneath Saif Farah's. I'm sure he'd like to be the 4th driver to lead a lap in this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's come from 19th position, so he's showing no signs of slowing down as he comes through the field. Being very consistent with his lap times, taking care of that equipment, and now he's right on the back door of our leaders.
Yeah, see Cody Dempster there down to the inside of Cosman Ioannidis. Cody once again gets the call that he's clear. We'll see if this time he can better that mistake that he made last time he snagged the lead. Looks like this time he's going to avoid the wall. Scott Eckridge still duking it out with Saif Farah's there for the 3rd position. And just behind those guys, waiting in the weeds, Brian Yazik in the 55 car.
Yeah, oh, we see Scott get a little loose off of 2. That's what we were talking about. Extremely easy to do over throttle when those tires have gotten worn. That's going to let Yazik get to his outside here. We'll have to see who prevails onto the front straightaway. But Brian Yazik is one of the guys with this particular car on this version of Atlanta. Has a great feel for the car, and we expected him to go to the front, guys. He's already made his way into the top 5.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I believe Brian Yazik won the new Atlanta race last season, so I might be misconstruing those facts in my memory perhaps, but gets you just ahead of Brian Yazik right now. Pretty hot, heavy battle there for the number 2 position. Saif Farah's around the outside of the number 94 car of Cosman Ioannidis. So Cosman, guys, maybe he's overheated his tires this far into the run, falling backwards.
Yeah, and we are about 10 laps away from potential pit stops here, and the times are still falling off. We're down to about 32.5s, 32.6s. Some drivers running a 32.4 once in a while. And so that just shows that the tires are never really going to plateau. They're going to keep falling off until you have to pit with that 75% fuel load.
Yeah, kind of tells me some guys might just be looking in for maybe an undercut opportunity. Like maybe if I'm somebody like a Christopher, like a Michael Krobach, I might bring my car down pit road, get that undercut opportunity, and see if I can't make up some ground on these guys with fresh tires compared to their old stuff. Another guy up there doing a really good job today. Let's talk about him for a second. Kevin Bartelt. He started in the 2nd position. Usually by this point in the race, knock on wood or glass, whatever you want, Kevin would have been involved in some miraculous event. He'd be parked right now, or maybe he's getting his car repaired down on pit road, but not so far today. Pretty good run here from Kevin.
Yeah, he's so far just been minding his own business, trying to keep his car in a clear area. He's kind of found a spot to run where he didn't have a whole lot of traffic around him. Right now he's got Krobach trying to make that pass on him. Krobach coming through the field, being a great conservator on the tire saving here, so he's able to save those tires. We expect him to be here when we have something like a 40-lap run, but Kevin doing a great job just minding his own business, taking care of his car, and you see right there, even though Krobach's one of the best at saving tires, Kevin was able to hold him off.
Yeah, Kevin doing a phenomenal job. Further up through the field, you see Scott Eckridge and Brian Yazik. These 2 guys have been trading back and forth that last podium position for the last couple laps. I don't see it dying down anytime soon. They're really going at it. I mean, not side drafting each other, but certainly one passing the other back and then getting passed back by the other guy.
Guys, the first driver who is chosen to pit is Thomas George. He is by himself. He just came off of pit lane. He's going to have at least 1 or 2 laps of undercut on the rest of the field. And I'm not so sure that many other drivers will notice. Ooh, we actually have a car off the pace on the backstretch. That's Tim Weinkoff, but I think we will stay green. Angel Jamie's coming to the pits. So yes, so Thomas George pitting is going to start dragging the rest of the field down pit lane with him, but he didn't have great field position at the time, so the front runners might stay out a little while longer.
Yeah, still looking at this side-by-side battle here for the 3rd position. Brian Yazik, I feel like kind of maybe just cracked the throttle there. Coming off for turn 2, that's going to allow for Scott Eckridge to get ahead of him and now firmly put himself into that 3rd position. We'll have to see if anybody's going to slow down to make their way to pit road this time by. No takers just yet, but all these guys, Kenny, you're going to have to come in about, 5 laps, and they're going to be on fumes.
Yeah, I think so. You know, we're basically just started lap 43. and according to our notes, they can go 46 to 48 laps. Now, early on, you could maybe do a kind of an overcut and just run as long as you possibly can because you have time to make up that track position. But Austin, you and I have kind of worked out races before where you undercut right from the beginning just to make sure that you can still make it on the same amount of pit stops as everybody else, and it really can pay dividends as long as you don't get too aggressive with that tire advantage and just kind of stay smooth with your driving.
Yeah, or unless you get unlucky. I can't tell you the amount of times you come down pit road thinking you're going to undercut the field, and the caution comes out almost immediately, traps you a lap down. Guys, one driver, though, up into the top 10 I did not expect to see up there this early, Vincent Crow, that number 83 car. The driver has won multiple races this season, only driver able to do it. Currently in the 7th spot.
Yeah, Austin, he's been up front in every single race. Even when he had some issues last week at Phoenix, he was able to come back and get a podium finish. So he's one of those guys that so far in this season hasn't been able to do a whole lot wrong.
Yeah, if I can't remember correctly, I think he's already won, he's 2 for 3 or something in the season. I mean, just had a phenomenal run this year, and you can really see that in the point championship standings. He's got, about a 50-point leader, something crazy. So Vincent taking the world by storm right now.
Now, Ryan's doing a good job here showing this kind of it's still kind of a gaggle of cars in the top 5, top 10 spots. As you see, looks like Jersky coming into the pits. But, drivers are going to have to communicate with each other about when they're pitting because, JR, it can be treacherous when you're this close to the field and don't properly communicate when you're pitting because the field is way tighter still than we expected them to be.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that very thing as we've seen guys pit. Most of those guys have been by themselves. When you're in this pack racing each other side by side, nose to tail, you come to pit road, you actually slow down on the racing surface. So if you do not communicate with that guy that's around you, it's very easy for him to run right in the back of you as you're trying to make that pit entry.
Yeah, shades of Chase Elliott trying to pit in that, 2016, 2017 All-Star race where in turns 3 and 4, he slammed on the brakes and Ryan Newman went to take him out, and it caused a huge pileup there in the All-Star race last year. Looks like a couple drivers starting to slow down to come on down to pit road. Michael Krobach, one of them. Brian Yazik, one of the other ones. You see those two, a tandem coming down onto pit road.
And you see the leaders have started lap 48. Some of them still not coming down. Actually, the top, there's about 11 or 12 cars that still have not come to pit. So some might be able to stretch it a little bit longer than we originally thought.
Looks like 12 guys. We're getting word right now from director-producer Ryan Seneker of guys that have stayed out on the track. A couple more coming down this time by Cody Dempster, Cy Ferris, Chris Stauffer come down pit road. Looks like Kevin Bartelt's going to lead this lap. No, Scott Eckert, excuse me. Scott's got about a second lead over that trifecta of cars. Just behind him, Kevin Bartelt, Isaiah Dupre, Vincent Krobach.
I need to... Oh, go ahead, JR.
No, sorry, I was just going to say Scott Eckridge is choosing to do the long run here. Possibly want to get Kenny's opinion on this, but maybe he's trying to look at having the fresher tires, assuming that we go green at the end of the stage where we get the stage points.
Oh, here comes Scott right now. And just behind him, I think that's Isaiah Dupre. Doesn't quite make it all the way down to pit road.
And he's going to have to go all the way around again, and he could potentially run out of gas if he was on fumes there, because he's going to be starting lap 50. Good job coming back onto the racing surface and not taking anybody out, but that was hairy.
Yeah, Kevin Bartelt assumes the lead of this race. Looks like he's going to pit this time by Vincent Crow, choosing to stay out on the track one more time. So he'll be about, the 6th driver to lead a lap today. We're only on lap 50. Pretty incredible just how many different drivers we're seeing. I'll be honest, guys, I'm pretty surprised we continue to stay green and clean racing here in Old Atlanta.
What I was going to bring up is we need to keep an eye on Thomas George and Jeff Ward, especially Thomas George, because he pitted 3 laps before the next car did. He is now up to, it looks like 5th place, so he'll cycle to a really good spot compared to where he was before the cycle started. But of course, everybody will be running him down with the fresher tires.
Yeah, as you see Vincent Crow peel off the racetrack and down onto pit road, looks like Joe Branch will be the next driver to inherit the lead if he continues to stay out on track. No, looks like the 28 car is going to come down onto pit road as well. This is a replay here. Looks like the driver of the number 35, Tim Weinkoff. He joined the race a little bit late. You can see him slamming into the inside retaining wall, coming to a stop there in that Patriot Media and Marketing car.
And that was up off of turn 2, guys. That's proven to be the most treacherous spot on the racetrack so far. But as we're looking on the screen here, Thomas George has inherited that lead by doing that undercut. The thing I'm thinking, guys, and Kenny, you can chime in on this one, I think he's probably going to wish that this goes about another 20 laps and then have a caution, because that will pay dividends for him with track position.
Yeah, Mr. Sunshine going from worst to first position here by lap number... Any?
Yeah, depending on the timing of things, George either wants it to be a caution, now, before everybody else catches him, or wants it to cycle completely yet again so that he can get that tire advantage once again.
Second driver on track there to Thomas George. One of the other fast guys that came down pit road relatively soon compared to the others, Michael Krobach. He's back to about 2 seconds behind our leader. You see Scott Eckridge trying to work to the outside of Michael Krobach. Just behind these guys, you got Jeff Ward, then Doug Roth and Brian Yazik. So a lot of the old guys with a couple new ones mixed in there.
Yeah, this is definitely a driver's track. Those guys from last season, we saw how good they were with being able to control this car and not abuse the tires. That will play directly into their hands during this race, and that's why during this cycle of the pit stops, we're seeing these guys back up front.
So Kenny, go ahead, put yourself in the shoes of one of these 4 or 5 now drivers in this pack here trying to chase down our leader of Thomas George. They're taking about 1 to 1.5, maybe 0.2 of a second out of his lead every single lap. At this point, do you try to stay single file and just hunt him down, or do you race your way up through this little pack here to make sure you're the first guy up to the rear end of that 6 car to pass him?
Well, the dynamic thing going on here is you see on our pit strategy board there, everyone pretty much is pit on a different lap than the driver around them. So everyone's tire status here is different. So you got drivers that are going to think, like, hey, I got the freshest tires, I want to get up to the front, or, or I want to keep that track position, keep drivers at bay. So we actually had some contact off turn 2 there, but yeah, I think everybody's racing here with whatever they have underneath them, and I'm really impressed with how long here Thomas George is going to be able to keep that lead. He's going to put that thought in his back pocket. He might try to run that same strategy over again. I don't think Thomas will be the driver to get stage points necessarily. I think he's focused on potentially winning the race.
Tell you what, though, big problem for Thomas George these last 2 laps. He was actually run down and almost getting past there before they got loose by that 06 car of William Farmer. That's why you saw Thomas lose about an entire second of his lead. Right now, you've got Scott Eckridge hunting him down. He can smell blood in the water. This is within 0.2 of a second behind him. Looks like Scott's probably going to have the lead this time by as they head down into turn 1.
Yeah, and I don't think Thomas is, I think Thomas is smart enough to know not to race these guys. He just needs to keep himself clean. He knows the tire advantage that they have. There's no sense in him continuing to wear out his tires even further and just fall deeper into the field.
Side-by-side battle just behind those guys. Saif Fares in the 44 car goes around the outside of Jeff Ward. Now you see Saif looking to the outside again of Michael Krobach. Krobach doing a little bit of a wiggle there on the bottom. Looks like he's still clear of those. They come off of turn 4.
And Scott's in a really good position because he actually pit later than everyone else around him. He was about one of the last drivers to come in and pit. So the fact that he's cycled up to the lead and has technically a tire advantage, as long as he takes care of them, that's a win-win for the 70 car.
Yeah, I tell you what, he got a third win in there as well. He was the first car to pass Thomas. He got it done relatively soon because he passed him pretty much going down the straightaway, and it really slowed Michael Krobach and Saif Fares down that they kind of had to wait and pick their battle there with that 6 car. Tried to have to make a move there in the corner that really checked him up. That's why you can see they're about a 3, 4, 5/10 of a second back behind their leader. George continues to fall back. He's going to find himself outside of the top 5 at the moment. You can see him already in the 7th position. The next car behind him is that 71 machine of Adam Jersky, last week's winner in Phoenix. That looks like he's not going to be held on to this position for a whole lot longer. Jersky about to half a second behind him for the moment. Up further in the field, you've got the 9 car of Jeff Ward down to the inside of Brian Yazik. Looks like Yazik's going to clear himself.
Yeah, and right now, guys, the drivers that are up inside the top 4, the worst starting spot was 13th from those guys. You have Eckert who started 19th, Jeff Ward 32nd, and then back with Thomas George, like we talked about earlier. He's fallen back through the field a little bit, but he started 33rd. A lot of those guys that started deep in the field, they are using their driving talent to get up toward the front, as well as pit strategy that we saw during this last cycle. So these guys know how to get it done, and they've made their way back toward the front.
Sayfair has made up a lot of ground there on Scott Eckridge. Tried to challenge him for the lead that last time by in turns 3 and 4. This time by off of turn 2, he got that car really sideways, was forced to basically give up all the ground he made up on the last lap and a half. And Kenny, you've got some news about the track temperature going up and down.
Yeah, you know, it started at about 102 degrees this evening, and it's all the way up to 107, and it looks like it's down to 105 now, so it is definitely fluctuating. I noticed the cloud cover's kind of been changing constantly, so that's going to be changing that track temp. The air temp is 80 degrees, so it's decently warm down in virtual Atlanta, Georgia, past Atlanta, Georgia, I should say. But, you know, another thing I'm noticing, though, is these drivers, despite the tire strategy and everything, the top 10 drivers, top 5 drivers are really still staying very close together. And I'm really impressed with how everybody was able to execute their own pit strategy and still come out as pretty much a group.
Yeah, that track temperature statistic you gave there, Kenny, continues to get hotter and hotter from the starting of this race. Really just goes to show why it's called Hot Atlanta here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The old kind of style, this track scanned in 2008, so the surface in real life actually continued to get more and more worn out, but honestly, one of my favorite tracks on the entire service. So glad and thankful that the Pretty Good Racing League decided to split up their Atlanta races, one on the old configuration and one on the newer configuration.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a driver's track. It gives you so many options. It puts the driver in control because he can control his own destiny with how he drives this track, starting at the beginning of the run and throughout that run, so he can have something to work with at the end. So many times we've seen guys start out slower in a run and then at the end of the race be the ones that are challenging for that win. We've seen fantastic finishes here in NASCAR with Dale Earnhardt taking a win over Bobby Labonte. We saw Carl Edwards do it over Jimmy Johnson, and then we saw the big win from Kevin Harvick being able to pass Jeff Gordon to get that win. Extremely close finishes, but the driver came into play there at the end with how they drove their car and took care of their equipment.
Yeah, speaking of guys driving their car and taking care of their equipment, Scott Eckridge has eked out about a 1.1 second lead here over the rest of the field. You see a two-wide battle going on right now for that second position. Michael Krobach down to the inside. Sayef Ferris there on the outside, getting a little bit closer to the wall than I'm sure he'd like there coming off of turn 2.
Yeah, and you know, we just talked about it being a driver's track. We saw in turns 1 and 2 where the drivers are going. Sayef Ferris has been one of those guys that loves running the higher line, and he's proven to take care of his equipment doing it. Kenny, you can chime in on this one. That's usually a place that's a little bit easier to use up your equipment because you're not turning the wheel as much. You're able to get back to that throttle earlier, and it usually wears the rear tires out, but Sayef's doing a very good job.
Yeah, he really is. And, you know, I've noticed at Atlanta, you know, if you can do it right, I think that the top line really is a viable option, even in a fixed setup situation. Now, I think it's more a valuable option in turn 1 and 2 because of how kind of funky shaped it is. You really can build up the momentum more than you can in 3 and 4. But you can run really anywhere at Atlanta, the old Atlanta, and that's one reason why all of us up in the booth, especially, we all really like this track because it gives you options. But yeah, you just have to really, whatever line you choose to run, you have to take care of both ends of the car, the front and the rear, because we know that sometimes if the setup's tight, you go to run up top and you try to carry too much mid-corner speed and you have to yank the wheel to keep it from hitting the fence. You can wear out the front tires as well.
Yeah, lots of opportunities here to wear out different parts of the tire, different tires actually on the car. You get a tight condition, it can get worse. You get a loose condition, that can get worse as well. Coming up to about 13 laps to go here before the end of this initial stage. Again, points are awarded for the top 10. The driver in the first position getting 10 times the amount of the driver in 10th, from 10 points all the way down to 1 point there. No caution, though, is being thrown, unlike today's NASCAR. So we're going to continue to stay clean and green just as long as the drivers out there on track can continue to race that way.
Actually, just saw another big-time retirement, and that's Vincent Crowe, and he just it looked like he just pulled into the pits and called it a night. I mean, I don't know any other way to explain it.
I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but Kenny, you know what we call that? Championship implications. Vincent Crowe, your current points leader, forced to basically retire earlier than he would like to from this race. I'd be interested to hear why he did that, having such a strong run here in the earlier goings before they came down pit road that last time by. At the end of their first stint, he was in the 7th position, actually continued to get higher and higher there towards the end. I'd be really curious to see why he had to bring that car back down pit road.
And despite having 0 cautions, we're down to about 25 or so competitive cars. I think, pretty much 25 competitive cars left on the track out of the 33 that started. So no cautions does not necessarily mean no attrition.
Yeah, we saw a couple different wrecks here in the earlier goings of this race that took a decent amount of guys kind of out of contention for the most part. And to be honest here, guys, we saw Cody Dempster doing really well before that most recent pit stop kind of swing, we'll call it. He is currently in the 20th position right now. He was running up by all these guys currently leading the race, and that's one of those things. You can have a slow pit in lap, you can have a slow pit out lap, you might blow through your box. Currently, he's still on the lead lap. He's about 23.7 seconds behind our leader, Scott Eckridge, and these guys are only doing about 31 second laps here, so pretty darn close to getting put down that one lap. So that would tell me, Kenny, he might have blown through his box, and maybe instead of having a pit road speeding penalty, having to come down pit road again, that would most certainly put him down 1 or 2 laps.
Yeah, it's such a, you get really punished for any kind of mistake in a pit cycle. But speaking of pit cycles, we're about 5 or 6 laps away from possibly starting another pit cycle with Thomas George pitting early, as we expect him to repeat. And just to kind of give you a recap on his strategy, he pitted back on lap 39, and he was 19th place when he pitted. Now we're about 5 laps away from me expecting him to pit, and he's only 10th place, so that is a net gain of 9 spots. So I would say a definite win for Thomas George in that strategy.
Yeah, and just because we touched on it earlier, you folks at home might be a little bit curious of what's going on here. This isn't him using up his tires too fast. You can afford to pit every 23 laps, right, Kenny?
Yeah, you can technically pit every 23 laps for tires. Now, you don't necessarily want to do that. You want to extend a little longer than that to make sure you don't have to make extra fuel stops. But yeah, 23 laps will get you through your tire sets, but you can go 46 to 48 on a tank of fuel.
The battle you're looking at right now on your screen is the battle for the 5th position. Christopher Hasbin, Kazman Ioannishiu in the 94 car in the bottom. Cythers, the 44 up top, chasing him for that spot right now. Up further in the field, Michael Krobach continues to hold on to the 2nd position, but in the last couple laps or so, Jeff Ward has been slowly but surely closing in on him, guys. He's kind of running what you call it, JR, a Jeff Ward of a race.
Yeah, definitely. We saw that these guys were some of the last ones to come into the pits, so they do have fresher tires than some of the guys around them. But Jeff Ward is extremely good at taking care of his equipment. We know that Krobach is as well, so this just shows you how much Jeff Ward has done saving his equipment to even try to be up there racing with Krobach at this point. But even so, Scott Eckridge, we talked about him pitting so late and possibly having the good tires at the end of this run. He is continuing to pull out to a 3-second lead. It was like 2.5 seconds just a couple of laps ago. So he's continuing to pull away from these guys and looking for that stage win in a few laps.
Yeah, stage win coming at the end of lap 82, the proverbial just about halfway point in the race. We're going to have about 4 laps to go until the end of lap 82 this time by. So that's, again, Points will be paid out to the top 10 drivers in the running order. No caution, though, unless it's for cause. We're not just going to throw it to bring the field back together to artificially create good racing. The racing we're going to continue to show if these guys stay clean and green is just that authentic, that good stuff. Primo.
And how about the competitiveness of the field tonight? I mean, we've been going almost 80 laps, green flag straight, and all but 3 drivers that are on track still are still on the lead lap.
It's pretty incredible when you think about the amount of parity in this series. You see Jeff Wall just barely getting into the outside wall. He's really busting down the fence here, trying to get back after that 72 car, Michael Krobach.
Yeah, getting close to that stage in just a couple of laps here. Jeff Ward wants that extra position. He's had some tough races this season. He wants to start getting these stage points and moving up through the standings. So definitely pushing hard. We saw him just overstep it slightly in 1 and 2. Didn't hit the wall enough to hurt his car, but definitely slowed him down enough that he wasn't able to continue to stay with Krobach that last lap. But he's making a huge run to the bottom of 2 here.
Kenny, we continue to see Jeff Ward try to pass Krobach down to the inside. At what point do you just kind of go to the outside on a whim and hope that Krobach gives it to you, or you can actually pull the pass off around the outside?
Well, it looks like Krobach's doing a really nice job just taking away whatever line that Ward wants to run here, kind of mirror driving a little bit because he knows that the pits cycle is going to start here soon and the stage end is coming this lap. So I'm surprised Ward hasn't tried the bottom, honestly, in 1 and 2. There's not enough room to go to the outside. Krobach's too high.
Well, he continues to, just like what you're saying there, Kenny, just mirror driving it, and at this point he's taking all the air off the front end of that number 9 car in Jer, making him a lot tighter than I'm sure he'd prefer to be to this point in the race. Scott Eckridge out to about a 3.5 second lead. He's going to cross the start-finish line this time by to complete the stage 1 here, so that, again, the top 10 drivers getting points. Michael Krobach second, Jeff Ward third, Brian Yazik fourth, Chris Stouffer fifth, Cosmin Ioanniscu in 6th, Cy Ferris 7th, Adam Jersky in 8th, Shane Parrish 9th, and Thomas George rounds out your top 10, guys. Pretty impressive from him, and Kenny looks like he's going to be pitting this time by.
Yeah, so to my surprise, Thomas is going to be able to undercut the field, get a +9 gain overall, and grab a stage point. So it's been working out really nicely for him, and yes, he is coming in, it looks like this time by, to start the pit cycle here. But again, some drivers are going to be going 10 plus more laps than this, so this is only the beginning.
And you know what, Kenny? I'll level with you right here. I really like the move here out of Thomas George. I'm sure he originally thought he was going to come down pit road at the end of lap 80 to complete that whole 39 laps between every pit stop thing. But I guarantee you, as soon as he saw he was going to hold on to 10th position, he said, hold up, I'm going to stay out of here just a little bit longer, see if I can't get myself that one extra bonus point. And you know what 1 point can come down to at the end of the season.
Yeah, guaranteed. That's exactly what he was thinking there. Just, might as well. I mean, it's going to alter his strategy just a hair. He won't have quite the undercut of everybody else that he had. But, I mean, still, grabbing that 1 point, and still would expect to see a net gain from him over this next cycle if it completes. So Thomas is doing a really nice job of the strategy right now.
Certainly, Thomas George continues to go ahead and rock this undercut strategy. I saw Doug Roth come down pit road last lap. I believe Mike Rasmus did as well. Looking at a couple more drivers, seeing if they can't make their pit stops this time by. We'll see if we have any takers.
Yeah, guys, it's going to be interesting if we can hopefully stay green, because we've had some fantastic racing, and it's allowing strategy to come into play here. So it'll be very, very interesting if we continue to stay green to see how Thomas George's pit strategy compares to somebody, say, like Scott Eckridge, who's choosing to pit a lot later.
Safe there is there on the outside, giving way to Adam Jersky there down on the inside. Looks like Safe's going to come down pit road, almost get his right sides in the grass there just a little bit.
Yeah, and Kenny, we talked about how treacherous it is coming to pit road just because you have to slow down on the racing surface. But tell us from a driver's standpoint, not having to worry about anybody hitting you, just how hard it is to get that car slowed down and on the pit road.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, the corner is somewhat blind. You don't really have a whole lot of runoff space. And at the same time, your tires are the most worn that they've been. So you don't necessarily have the turning and stopping power that you would have if you had brand new tires underneath you. So it's It certainly is tricky, and at the same time, you're trying to maximize what you got. If it's a green flag race, the green flag pit stop is a time when you can make up time or make up spots by maximizing your pit entry and pit exits. So these drivers are just trying to maximize what they can get. A nice smooth entry here by Michael Krolbach. You'll see some drivers lock up the front tires, getting everything that they can on entry.
Well, Kenny, I assume it's kind of a tale of two different stories. At one point on your old tires, you're really tight, trying to turn the car down, and as soon as you go from the banking to the apron, I would assume that car almost wants to whip around on you.
It can, especially if you're really turning the...
Well, there's a caution midway through the pit cycle. There's a caution. Looks like, is that Cody Dempster going for a spin down the backstretch?
And I'm actually a little bit surprised that brought up... Oh, maybe it's this. That's what brought out the caution. He didn't back up onto the apron, so this is going to really throw a monkey wrench into things because the cycle had started, but plenty of drivers still had not pitted.
And a lot of drivers trapped a lap down by that accident as well. Thomas George, Cy Ferris, William Farmer, Jordan Harnish, Cody Dempster, Mike Rasmus, Brian Yazik, another one of those drivers, Brian Greenlee as well.
Yeah, this is really, really going to hurt both Thomas George and Doug Roth because they have a decent few laps on their tires, and they will take the wave around here most likely and get back on the lead lap, but they will be at the largest tire disadvantage compared to the entire field.
See, Scott Eckridge going to go ahead and bring the field down pit road. Jeff Ward, Cosmin Ioannishu, Shane Parrish, 19 car Will Farmer, all coming down pit road. No doubt we'll see the rest of the drivers on the lead lap who haven't already pit come down pit road this time by. We're going to stay with you here until the end of the race off pit road.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious for all these lead lap drivers to take 4 tires. You'll see, looks like Scott Eckridge will win the race off of pit road. And he's one of about 11 drivers or so that have come down who had not pitted yet. And we'll get a full service.
And with the end of the race off pit road, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back in a couple minutes.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Atlanta Motor Speedway, the old Atlanta Motor Speedway, might I add, for the Everything Gets Better with Age 250 presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch. GuyL Brooks is a 39-year-old solid mid-pack driver with a tendency to hit walls on his own. He is an iRacing beta tester and has been sim racing since the youthful age of 6. You can catch GuyL streams at twitch.tv/GamingGuyL. We're here on lap number 93 out of 163. We've only had one caution so far. very much getting close to eclipsing 100 green flag laps. We've had about 10 or so different drivers leading under the green flag conditions here. Right now, the driver in the lead is Scott Eckridge. He's going to have Jeff Ward to his outside, Cosmin Ionishu in third, Shane Parrish fourth, William Farmer in fifth. And Kenny, there was a whole lot of wave rounds due to the fact this caution came out midway through a pit cycle.
Yeah, and they're all coming around the track trying to catch up to the rest of the field at this point. Basically 13th on back, led by Michael Krobach, all having to take the wave around. And some are at a worse disadvantage than others, and notably Thomas George and Doug Roth. They're back in 18th and 19th. Thomas back basically where he was before the first pit cycle, and they're going to have the worst tires. They're basically 3 to 7 laps older than the rest of the field.
Back towards the front of the field, we're still lined up trailer park girdle style, too wide here up at the front of the field. iRacing pace car cuts down pit road. Green flag flies in the air once again. Scott Eckridge out to a commanding lead already. Jeff Ward up to about just an equal lead. He's got about 3 or 4 car lengths between him, and then another 3 or 4 car lengths back to the driver in the third position, Cosmin Ionishu. As you see Shane Parrish now ducked down to the inside as he tries to hold on to the 4th position.
Yeah, everybody jogging for position. We see a car, I believe it's the 06, that went way low coming off of turn 2. He keeps it corrected, though, and we stay green. These guys up front, Scott Eckridge continuing to pull away slightly from Jeff Ward. Jeff Ward from the remaining 3 guys behind him.
Really hot, heavy battle right here.
Oh, big wreck off of turn 4. Yeah, big wreck off of turn 4. Multiple involved, and I'll have to take a look at that. That was a heavy hit for a few drivers. Looks like it starts at Brian Greenlee and Joe Hassard. Joe Hassard was on the top side and got loose. Came down into Greenlee. And heavy impacts for a couple of those drivers. Some of them might have gotten away with it. There you go.
And a lot of fast guys out in that one. Say Ferris taking a big hit of damage. Christopher with a hard lick as well.
Well, I want to take a ride on board Michael Krobach because I thought he was in this, but he actually dove down into the grass, went flying down, went kind of pogo hopping through the grass and actually missed it. A really good avoidance here. Him just miss out on that, go through the grass, and he's going at speed, so he's going to bounce his way through the infield.
Well, Kenny, I can remember you going for a heck of a lot of bounces when you were in your podium 500 there. I mean, the rear end of your car probably shut up, 4 feet off the ground. That was crazy there, that ride that Krobach went through. Duke's a hazard through the grass there.
Yeah, and in a way, this is actually going to really help those wave around cars because now they'll get to catch up to the field. The bad thing is some of those wave around cars, like Chris Stouffer, for example, Cy Ferries as well, they're involved in this wreck, so that was kind of a product of them having to be put back in traffic like that. But for the other wave rounds, Thomas George, a big one, will get to survive and come back up through the field, although I don't see him coming into pit, so he's going to live with his old tires for now.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised with that move by the driver of the 6 car, Thomas George, not elected to come down onto pit road. Kenny, you hit the nail right on the head. This is basically a gift from the racing gods for all those guys that took the wave around that last time by. And I was thinking back to Larry McReynolds saying if there's an opportunity for you to get your lap back, you take it and you deal with the consequences. Later, one driver succumbing to the consequences of being involved in that last accident. Big Joe Hassard has manually disconnected from the session. We're going to take another quick breakthrough underneath this second caution, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Everything Gets Better with Age 250 presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch. We're here at the old Atlanta Motor Speedway. You're watching the Virtual Grip Network. We're here on lap number 98 out of 163. Scott Eckridge still your leader, Jeff Ward second, Cosmin Ioanniscu in third, Shane Parrish fourth, Will Farmer, in the fifth position. To round out your top 10, Jake Sylvia sixth, Joe Branch in seventh position, and Joshua O'Connor up a whopping 20 positions in the eighth position. Isaiah Dupre in ninth, Creighton Carter, tonight's pole sitter, in the 10th position. And guys, how about Kevin Bartelt? He started the race in the second spot, currently up into 11th place. And then you got all the guys, Kenny, that took the wave around on that second to last caution. Krobach, Yazik, George, Harnish, a bunch of those guys now able to come down pit road, get new tires, and retain their lead lap status.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like some of them actually didn't even take advantage of that because, Krobach, for example, he had only pitted 2 laps before the rest of the field that was on the lead lap under that caution. So, but Thomas George still, he also decided not to pit. So that one was a little bit surprising, especially since these drivers have been able to save some tire sets with all the green flag racing. And all the other drivers that did come in, I think, were involved in that accident. So pretty much is leveled out, but now everybody is basically caught back up and officially on the lead lap. We have 20 cars on the lead lap now.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, for the first time tonight, the leader of the race has elected to start on the outside. So Scott Eckridge is going to put Jeff Ward down on the inside. That's the only row that has the positions flipped in terms of odd or even starting numbers. iRacing pace car pulls down pit road once again. Scott Eckridge is going to rocket away from the field. Not quite as strong a start as we saw last time, but pretty darn close to it for Jeff Ward, though. It's about half the lead he had over the rest of the field the last time by. Look at Jake Sylvia going around the outside there, and Shane Parrish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like that move that Scott did on the restart. He's tried the bottom multiple times. This time he wanted to try the outside just to see how it would go. Obviously not as good of an advantage of what he's had, but that's something he can put in his notebook if he retains the lead.
Yeah, that last time there in turns 3 and 4, Jeff Ward did a much better job through the center of the corner than Scott Eckridge did. I'll be very curious to see if that's where Jeff's making up a lot of his speed, or maybe if Scott's just trying to take it much easier on his tires. Pretty big battle here going on for this fourth position in the pack. That's Shane Parrish. Whoa, one car. Shane Parrish actually really sideways there down on the bottom. He's going to get freight trained by a bunch of cars. Going to fall all the way back down, about 10th position, double the amount of spots he was in.
Yeah, and it's really close right here with Cosmin up front. I believe that's Jake Sylvia trying to make a run on him. It actually cost him a little bit of speed down the straightaway, but he's going to work the outside through 1 and 2.
Yeah, and how about, guys, this 19 car, Will Farmer doing a really good job. As you see, Jake Sylvia barely able to pry that thing away from the wall as he came off turn 2.
Oh, Rick, I believe down the back straightaway. He's trying to hang on to it, man, but he's going to slide to the infield. If he stays down there, we may stay green, but he comes back up onto the track surface.
Not quite a caution yet. Looks like we're going to stay green here if he gets that thing turned around. I almost felt like screaming like they did when Jeff Ward went to the infield the 2009, 2010 All-Star race. He just kept his foot in it, saved the car, did a miraculous job to keep this thing off of anything.
Yeah, he did a really nice job. I'm surprised the caution didn't come out, but he gets it back rolling right now. He's going to have some angry tires. He's going to have to try to work it through the rest of this run.
You can see as the leaders went through all the smoke that he just put down, Kevin Bartelt did. We continued to stay green flag racing here. Scott Eckridge continues to hold the lead over Jeff Ward. Cosmin Ioanniscu in third. Jake Sylvia has since slipped back. He's right now being hounded by the 19 car of Will Farmer and the 59 car of Joshua O'Connor.
Yeah, these guys have a nice battle going on at the moment right here. Farmer has done a great job so far from a junior. He's working on Jake Sylvia through 3 and 4. He looks like he has a little bit of damage. I think I see a little bit of a split between the hood there and the right front fender, just very slightly, but done a nice job keeping that car clean, and now he's it's paying dividends for him. He's up front.
Yeah, and just behind this battle going on right here is all the drivers that had the opportunity and did take the wave round behind. Got guys like Michael Krobach, Ryan Yazik, Isaiah Dupre. Those guys still hold on to this lead lap run here. You got Thomas George just behind those guys in the 6 car, defending series champion.
And Thomas just kind of trying to hang on for this run. He knows we're going to be pitting at least probably 2 more times, bare minimum. And he's just trying to hold on, but still 12th place, kind of at the tail end of a group of cars ahead. He's doing a good job with these slightly older tires.
How about the front of the field, guys? I'm kind of surprised here that Scott Eckrich hasn't been able to pull away from the rest of these guys like he was able to before. Jeff Ward is still on his rear bumper, and he's a lot closer than I feel like Jeff would want to be for the moment. I feel like JR right now, he's so close at this point, he's taking a lot of air up off the front end of that car, trying to remove the air off that splitter right now, Scott Eckrich, and this might lead to Jeff Ward having a really ill-handling, tight race car towards the end of this tire run.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw it even last week on the short track of Phoenix where that came into play. So definitely Jeff Ward running extremely close, and Scott Eckrich is being really smart at running the line that Jeff appears to want to run, because it's taking all of that air away from the front of Jeff's car. Now he'll be able to keep up with Scott for 15, 20 laps, but eventually Jeff's front tires are going to get really hot. They're going to get angry, and that front end is just going to start plowing and pushing through the corners, and he's not going to be able to maintain the racing line that he wants to. He'll have to lift off the throttle, and it will slow him down.
Yeah, you saw Ward, the 9 car, go all the way up to the high side in turns 1 and 2, taking that trailer parker line. Wasn't quite able to make it work there, especially in the center of the corner. I think for right now, Scott Eckrich might just be taking away the line that Jeff Ward wants to run, but I really feel like this is just the line that Eckrich is most comfortable with running right now. You see him trying the top side, leaving the bottom open to Jeff Ward. He's going to get a huge run in the 9 car, but watch him really have to pinch off his exit here, going to lose a lot of momentum.
Yeah, you definitely do lose some momentum up off of the corner when you're running the bottom, like we saw Jeff Ward doing there. But, oh, yeah, and Scott's going to hold him a little bit tight. That's going to cause Jeff to have to lift and not get back into the throttle like he wants to in the center there. So Scott's going to prevail down the front straightaway here. I do believe that if you can continue to run that bottom and do that Harvicking line, the line that Kevin Harvick was so great at running here, right against that white line through the corners, that you can really save a lot of tires. But Scott is being really good at where he's placing his vehicle right now, and it's causing Jeff a lot of fits.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact there between the 18 car of Jake Sylvia and the 19 car of Will Farmer as they went down into turn 1. It looked like Sylvia kept trying to continue to go down to the bottom of the racetrack. Will Farmer was already there. Big wiggle from the 19 car as the 18 car got into him. You saw Will kind of just speak up on the radio there, Kenny.
Yeah, and this three-way battle for the lead is really getting close. You see Ioanniscu kind of poking his nose into this battle, making it a three-way battle, and I don't think it'll stay this way. I think at least one of these drivers might pull away from the others as this run gets longer and longer, and I think Scott is he's doing exactly what Krobach was doing to Jeff Ward earlier, just trying to hold his line and really keep that clean air and hope that the drivers burn up their stuff while trying to take that lead.
Yeah, Jared, we continue to see Scott Eckrich kind of changing his lines a little bit, lap over lap. Is that just him trying to continue to put dirty air on the cars behind him, or is he right now maybe looking for a little bit of grip?
I'm sure he's searching around a little bit, but the one thing he's doing is trying to keep Jeff Ward guessing. So Jeff does not want to continue to run right behind Scott. So Jeff's going to try to run a different line when they get to the corner, but when he gets there, Scott's changing up what he's doing and running a different line each and every lap. So it's really keeping Jeff guessing, and more than anything, Jeff's going to continue to wear out his stuff trying to find that clean air. Scott's doing a fantastic job, and let me just tell you, it's extremely hard to continue to run fast laps while doing that.
So Scott Eckrich out in front to the tune of about a 1/10 of a second. Jeff Ward in second. Cosmin Ioanniscu third. Will Farmer fourth. Jake Sylvia in the 5th position. In 6th position, Joshua O'Connor. Brian Yasek actually just took that position back, relegates O'Connor down to 7th. Shane Parrish in 8th. Michael Krobach 9th. Thomas George rounds out your top 10. You can see Thomas trying to see if he can't pry away that position right there from the 72 car of Michael Krobach. Both those guys, the last 2 in the top 10.
Yeah, things have kind of started to settle down, and at least in the top 5, you got a top battle there between 5th, 6th, and 7th. Sylvia Yazek, and you got Joshua O'Connor has been kind of quiet, but is nicely having a good day, up 21 spots from 28th starting spot. Oh, a little contact off of 2 there. Oh, and there
Oh,
goes
they're
Sylvia. Oh,
continuing.
there he goes.
Sylvia around and around on the apron of the track. Brian Yazik checked up. That's going to cost him at least 5 positions. Can we stay green here? Looks like Sylvia just barely able to keep that car on the bottom of the racetrack. Might be looking for a caution to come out.
Yeah, definitely did a nice job saving it, but yeah, definitely pulled back onto the racing surface, probably hoping for a caution to come out. And yeah, it looked like Kenny called it. Looked like some contact up off of turn 2. We saw Yazik back way out of the throttle to try to let him save it, but they obviously came together once again about halfway down the back straightaway.
It was really weird, too. It looked like he had that car saved, did Jake Sylvia, as they came off of turn 2, and then it just went for another wiggle about halfway down the backstretch, and I'm sure that second one caught Brian Yazik very much so off guard.
Well, it's
Yeah,
just so hard to save these cars, JR, and you can speak to it. You get sideways, and if you really try to keep in the throttle at all, it's just so easy to lose it.
Yeah, exactly right. It's very difficult, and Kenny, you touched on it earlier with the setups on these cars being so rigid. They're so tied down to the racing surface with the way the suspensions are, that once you get sideways, you're trying to save it, but the car's naturally wanting to go back and forth, left and right on you, and if you just overcorrect it a little bit, the car will just continue to go around. It's very hard to save it without getting on the brakes and just letting the car correct itself.
With that little bit of a half a spin there, Shane Parrish and the rest of the top 10 all go up by 1 more position. Brian Yazik can fall about 5 or 6 spots there. Joshua O'Connor, Kenny, I'm glad you touched about it, up 17 spots there from 28th to 11th. Been having a really quiet, consistent run here today. He should be very proud of this run this far into the race.
And actually, I think he lost a few spots during that skirmish there between the drivers up in front. I think he was trying to recover there. Ooh, Scythe Ferry's actually kind of by himself went for another run through the infield grass. This is kind of a repeat of what he did just a little bit ago, and he bounces his way down into turn 1. He'll keep going, but he's at the tail end of the lead lap now.
Oh, went for another spin there. Surprised he saved that second one in the middle of turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, guys, he was caught up in that wreck we saw earlier, unable to avoid what was happening in front of him. Took a very hard hit on that right-hand side. I'm sure he's got some suspension damage along with the cosmetic portion that's going to affect his handling a little bit. So he's struggling to keep that car underneath him, but continuing to try to finish this race.
Extremely tight, close racing here between the driver of the number 66 car, Shane Parrish. He's the one further up. Michael Krobach trying to steal that position away. Meanwhile, further back in the pack, you've got Cody Dempster, Doug Roth, and the number 22 car, Jordan Harnish. This is a battle for the 13th position. Right now, Cody Dempster has it. The 2 behind him trying to take it away.
Yeah, and some contact from behind there. Jordan Harnish just slightly getting into the back of Doug Roth. He's doing a nice job. Doug's actually ran a fantastic race. We don't see any damage on his car, and we've not talked about him a whole lot. He's just kind of been doing his own thing, but obviously has some decent speed here if he's able to race with Cody Dempster.
Yeah, look at him. Just continues to paint that apron there. That is a Harvicking in the best sense of the word there. Continues to just, you enter the corner a little bit slower than the drivers next to you on the higher side. Continues to just let off the gas and just let that thing rotate right there in that white line. Look at him paint this thing, JR.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you do it the way that Kevin Harvick used to. This track is very inviting as a driver to really drive it hard into the corner. It's very wide. You got 55 feet of space that you can use. But if you get off that throttle early and just paint that white line all the way around the corner, you can really save your tires and have something to work with late in the run.
Further up in the field, it's the battle I was just talking about before that one for the 13th position. This is a battle for 5th position on track. Shane Parrish in front, Michael Krobach behind. Thomas George has spent the last couple laps running these 2 drivers down, and just behind Thomas George right now is last week's winner, Adam Jerski in that 71 car.
Yeah, definitely Adam's got a ton of momentum coming off of last week's win, so he's wanting to continue to use that into this week's race. He's up into the 8th position, started 20th, and right now, like you said, just continuing to follow Thomas through the field right now. These guys don't have the best of tires, but they're continuing to get this thing working throughout the rest of this run. They probably got, I don't know, Kenny, about 15, 20 more laps before they have to pit.
Yeah, we're working lap 125 now. Everybody, well, the leaders anyway, pitted around lap 90, but we are going to see some variation in that. You know, Adam Jersky up in 8th place, pitted on lap 96. See a couple
Doug
cars
Roth
going
around.
around. Yeah, Doug Roth, he's got damage as well. He's going to have to limp it home.
Looks like Cody Dempster got loose there coming off 2, and Doug Roth just an innocent bystander. So those 2 cars heavy damage. Looks like that 24 car is going to have to come down onto pit road. That 43 saved the car. We'll see what Doug can do these next couple laps here.
I thought that maybe Doug had some suspension damage, but it is looking like he's able to continue, albeit he's down in 17th spot, next to the last car on the lead lap, but we do stay green here. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, JR, we do have one more pit stop to make for fuel, and there could be a little bit of variance on when everybody takes that.
Michael Krobach continues to try to wrestle this position away here for the 5th spot away from Shane Parrish. Further up the racetrack in the 4th position, Will Farmer, that 19 car, having a phenomenal run for him today, up 23 spots since the start of the race. Cosmin Ioanniscu, after a poor run last week in Phoenix, is only up 1 spot from where he started in 4th. Up ahead of him, Jeff Ward, he's up 30 positions again, one of the past 2 defending series champions. Those 2 always start in the last 2 grid spots for the starting order. And then up ahead of Jeff Ward is your current leader at the moment, Scott Eckridge. He's led the most amount of laps today, up 18 spots. Continues to have a really phenomenal run here.
Yeah, and we were talking about it. It seemed like just 5 to 10 laps ago how close Scott, Jeff, and Cosman were all racing together. Now Scott has been able to open that lead up to a 1.3 second lead this last time by, and that's because of how he was driving, being able to take that air off the guys behind him, being extremely smart with where he was placing his car. It's paying dividends now. He's starting to pull away.
Kenny, I'm kind of surprised here by the run that the guys that had that opportunity to take the wave around, they had the opportunity to come down pit road after that because we had a caution in rapid succession after the first one. Not many of those guys chose to come down pit road. Thomas George, one of the drivers that didn't, but still, Thomas having a pretty darn good run. Started 33rd, up in the 7th position for right now, battling with Adam Jersky for that spot.
Yeah, he's been doing a really good job of just saving what he has and actually kind of playing on offense right now. So pretty impressive. But I'm actually surprised more drivers haven't come into pit. We're actually seeing Brian Yazek coming into pit. He will be the one to undercut the field on this last pit cycle. Jordan Harnish coming in right behind him. I was just about to say I'm surprised we haven't seen more drivers pit now or earlier because we are in the fuel window to make it to the end.
Yeah, pretty interesting. These guys can go about 50 laps if you really try to conserve your stuff on a tank of fuel, and if you basically go ahead and just subtract 50 from 163, you get about 113. So a lot of these guys really not going out on too large of a limb, but like we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Kenny, you really don't want to go out on too thin a branch, even though it could be very advantageous for you to get that large undercut before the end of the race. If a caution comes out, you might be absolutely hosed.
Well, I mean, the way I see it is that everybody's got some extra sets of tires in the pits. So if, depending on cautions, things like that, if you undercut now, we get cautions, you could always just, pit again, take another set, take your medicine. Also, there's George right there coming into pit. But also, if you don't have the pace today, or you have very poor track position at this point, why not take a chance and either pit now really early or stretch it all the way to the end, which some of the front runners might actually do that. We'll have to see.
Yeah, lots of opportunity there to take advantage of the situation on either end. Either come down pit road. I was thinking we might see some guys about lap 124, 125 really take advantage of the undercut, or just stay out on track as long as they possibly can and hope for a caution towards the end of this thing. Just kind of like how we saw last time in the middle of a pit cycle. We saw green flag pit stops, a caution came out.
And a few more drivers coming down. Adam Jersky, Shane Parrish, Joe Branch, all coming down. And, JR, talk about what it's like being the leader because, being the front runners, you think you got this race under control. But this last pit cycle, depending on when you pit and how you pit, you see a couple of the front runners coming in now. Really hard pit entry there. How do you make sure that you get that right? You're constantly watching that relative.
Yeah, you're constantly watching and seeing what the other guys are doing. You kind of already have a decision in your head that you've made up, but you can always change that based on what you see going around you. I'm sure when Brian Yazik pitted, he's always very good at communicating when he comes into pit, so he doesn't keep that a secret. And I'm sure he was hoping that by pitting, he was going to pull some of these guys in with him, like Scott Eckridge and Jeff Ward and Michael Krobach. But so far, those guys have made up their mind that they're wanting to run long. So they're planning on having the fresh tires at the end of this race. Even if they lose some time to these guys in this run, they're going to have the freshest tires at the end and hopefully be able to come back and get those guys back at the end. But the risk of doing that is that we could always get a caution. So depending on where the caution falls can really change the outcome of this race. Right now, the guys that are up front are hoping it stays green.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye here on this number 6 car of Thomas George. You saw the 19 and the 94 cars just come off of pit road. Thomas George barely made it out in front of those guys. That's just how large an undercut he took. As you see the 59 car, Joshua O'Connor, coming down pit road this time by. Back to that 6 car, though, he made up a lot of ground on that car is right now behind him on the racetrack. That were about 2 or 3 seconds up the road from him when they were out on the racetrack. And I see he goes by Jeff Ward, that 9 car.
And Scott Eckridge is coming down pit road right now. So the leader coming down to make his potentially final pit stop. But and Isaiah Dupre coming in from second as well. But a few others are staying out. Creighton Carter will inherit the lead.
Oh, looks like Scott Eckridge, yep. So interesting to see when that 70 car decided to come down onto pit road. We'll have to see how this plays out for him. I'll be really interested to see where this puts that 6 car when Scott decides to come back off of pit road. Jeff Ward right now slotted in between the 19 car of Will Farmer and the number 94 car of Cosmin Ionishu. That's the drivers you can see towards the top of your screen as we look at that number 6 car, Thomas George.
Yeah, he's going to continue to go,
right around, sorry, Jay, Scott Eckridge, go ahead.
Yep, he's passing Scott here. So right now he's made up a ton of ground. Before the pit cycle, I believe he was running around the 10th position. So if we stay green, this will more than likely not be a winning move for Thomas George, but it could allow him to finish up closer to that top 5 and be a net gain of 5 positions on him. But we'll have to see how it plays out. Things always change late in these races.
So, JR, Kenny, what's your guys' opinion on this? Would you rather be one of the first guys to come down on pit road like Thomas George, or one of the last guys to come down pit road like Scott Eckridge and be on the offensive in the last couple laps of this race?
Well, with Scott being the leader, I'd rather be on the offense as long as you give yourself enough time to be able to come back through the field. But on the flip side, if you're a driver that was marred back in traffic, it was a pretty good run. Oh, and we need to look at Brian Yazik and Jake Sylvia. They are getting together down the front stretch, rubbing on the sides of each other. Remember, these two got into it a little bit earlier. I was just tracking Yazik because he was going to be the provisional leader, and he got hugely slowed down by a frustrated Jake Sylvia there.
Yeah, interested to see that Sylvia going to go ahead and take out that anger there on the driver of the number 55 car. He's going to go 3 wide, forced to lose a ton more positions there, getting passed by Jersky, George, Farmer.
Yeah, I think, Yazik will keep the provisional lead for the time being, but he just, the whole point of the strategy was to build a gap to everybody because he knows that everybody else will be faster than him. And now that gap is much, much smaller than it ever would have been.
Yeah, Kenny, those two guys talking on the radio, I don't know if you have your driver chat turned on. I do not. Are there any words between those guys that we're allowed to repeat on the broadcast or not so much?
Well, here you go. The perfect, Sylvia really pinched him down coming off through turn 3 as he was trying to lap him. And then they just rubbed all the way down the front stretch into turn 1. And I can't believe they didn't wreck. And now Yazik kind of getting bullied by traffic, trying to get around him on fresh tires as well. Here's the live shot. Yazik just not having a good time. But I know that Sylvia came over the radio. He wasn't too pleased when the original altercation happened. And then this time around, Sylvia was pretty quiet, and Yazik came over the radio and was just kind of like, what's going on, man?
Adam Piersky goes ahead and makes his way. Whoa, contact between the 19 car of Will Farmer and the 55 car of Brian Yazik. Might have been a little bit of scenario of my nose is in there, even though I wasn't quite cleared.
And that's going to actually allow Jeff Ward to clear both of them. He'll be the provisional leader, other than Adam Jersky is actually the provisional leader, who's right directly in front of Jeff Ward. So things are just overlapping and flip-flopping here on the fly.
Yeah, really interesting. Now Scott Eckridge is caught up to this 3 or 4 car battle or what have you for the 4th position. You see Eckridge there on the outside around the 19 car, making a move around the outside of the 6th machine of Thomas George. Not quite close enough, kind of boxed in for right now as they head down into turns 3 and 4. This is where Eckridge's new tire is really going to come alive on the outside of turn 4. 20 laps to go this time by.
Yeah, Scott trying to pick up these positions, get back toward the front. He's now inside the top 5. Will Farmer Jr., he's going to follow him through, so he's able to finally get by Yazik there and start to try to make up some ground that he's lost in the last few laps.
You see Thomas George going around the outside of Brian Yazik as well. So Kenny, as they stand right now, side-by-side battle here for the provisional lead. You got Adam Jersky on the outside, Jeff Ward down to the inside. Looks like Ward is forced this time by, maybe to kind of trying to reconsider this this whole move for the lead this early before the end of the race.
Oh, I think if you're Jeff Ward, you need to make this move now because you know that Scott Eckridge is going to be faster than the whole lot of these drivers. Ooh, you see one loose in the back, and Eckridge is going to take advantage past Ionishu and past Farmer, who's not on the lead lap. And that's a huge gain for Eckridge there. But if you're Ward, you need to take the lead as quickly as possible, and he does do that, clearing off of turn 4. And now he needs to try to run as much as he can.
Yeah, that last time by off at turn 2, Adam Jersky got really tight towards the end of the corner. Looked like he had to put a whole lot of wheel into that car and then got snapped loose there as they went down the backstretch. Jeff Ward checked up a little bit but got back to the throttle just a little bit earlier than Jersky did, took away that lead. And now it looks like this whole gap between the 2 cars looks like it's down to about a second, maybe a second and a half between Ward to Eckridge. Cypher is now coming down onto pit roads. That whole long strategy, trying to run long here, not quite playing out for the 44 car.
Yeah, but he was able to lead some laps, so even having a little bit of a rough day the second half of this race, he was able to get some laps led. Almost spins coming to pit road there, but able to keep it under control, and Jeff Ward will take the lead of this race. Adam Jersky in second, but Scott Eckridge is a charging through the field, continuing to charge, and he is in third, fighting with Adam right now.
Well, Scott Eckridge cutting down to the inside of Adam Jersky as they head down the stripe this time by. Start-finish line, I should say, at the stripe. Lap 148 out of 163. Time ticking down right now. We'll see if Jeff Ward can continue to hold on to the lead here. Can he continue to employ the same tactics Scott did to try and keep himself in the lead, or can Scott finally get around him in the next couple laps?
Yeah, hopefully Ward was learning from what has been done to him multiple times today and run a defensive line. As we take a look at a replay here, this is car exiting pit lane. Rasmus with just a spin on the apron there, but no caution.
Yeah, very uncharacteristic for that driver number 68 car, the man we coined Mr. Consistency last season. Not going to have quite the good run he was looking for today to follow up his really good run last week at Phoenix. But guys, Scott Eckridge continues to gain a lot of ground on Jeff Ward right here. Each and every lap he continues to just cut through the center of the corner much better than Jeff Ward does. He gains about a car length or 2 every time they go through the center of one of these corners.
Yeah, so Scott's continuing to work the high side right now, and that's a place that we've seen him running right before they made that last round of pit stops. He was using that line, but actually got into the wall a few times, so he's got a fresher rubber now. He can kind of push it a little bit harder than what he was. He's running up there, but Jeff Ward sees that, and Jeff's trying to go up there, but Jeff doesn't want to go all the way up there, so it's going to be a little hard for Jeff to try to use those same tactics that Scott was doing on him earlier, and right now Scott's got a huge run down the front straightaway. He's going to get to the inside.
Yeah, Eckrich down to the inside of Jeff Ward. The 9 car, we'll see though if Jeff Ward can pinch him down just the same as Eckrich did to him. Looks like Eckrich just able to get back to the throttle through the center of a corner a little bit better. Scott Eckrich goes to lead, relegates Jeff Ward back into the 2nd position for right now.
That's one thing that we touched on early in the race. Scott Eckrich is one of the few guys that we've seen be able to make passes both on the bottom and the high side. When you're able to do that, you have the advantage, you have the option to move wherever you need to on the track to get it done. He did it right there.
When you saw right after Eckrich made that pass how tight Jeff Ward got off of turn 4, tried to stay in the throttle to hang with the 70, and he just couldn't do it. And quite a gap already being built from 1st to 2nd. And Jeff at this point will just have to see if he can hold on here. He has newer tires than the next 3 cars behind him, so he should be okay, but he's just got to try his best to hold on.
The battle you've been looking at for about the last half a lap or so has been the one. This is for the 5th position, last spot in the top 5. Thomas George and Michael Krobach. Those 2 cars continue to go at it, both on the high, wide, and handsome side of turns 1 and 2. Krobach barely able to get down to the inside of Thomas George. Just right there, you get that call. Spotter says, hey, you got a guy down low, forced to give up the inside. We'll see if Krobach can continue to work that low side.
Yeah, he's continuing to try to do so. Thomas George has been running really good through the middle of the track, but Krobach, I believe, has a little bit fresher rubber than what Thomas has here. So if he's able to continue to stay on the inside, it should eventually pay off for him.
Yeah, you see George resolute on running that high side. Really makes it almost impossible sometimes to pass a guy if they continue to run high, even if they don't, pinch a Kenny. Just by running up top, it allows for that driver, I should say, doesn't allow for them to open up the wheel all the way from the bottom to the outside of the track and really blunts the momentum, really makes you wear out your rear axle.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, when you're trying to be aggressive here, driving hard at the end, looks like, Krobach's actually going to concede the spot and slide in behind, and he does have a gap back to 7th place Chris Stouffer, but now he's going to try to make up a run. Ooh, Thomas George loose off of 2 there. Krobach not going to dive underneath him though. He's going to choose to draft with him.
Yeah, that was almost going to be job done if Krobach could just barely eke himself to the outside of Thomas George when he went down the backstretch. Maybe we'll see if Krobach continues to try to run the bottom, or he might try to go to the high side. Looks like he tried to go high. Looks like he's going to do that as they head down into turn 1. He's there.
Yeah, I think some of what Krobach did the last time through there was, hey, I'm going to run high, and if you get loose in front of me, then maybe you shouldn't be there. So I think Krobach was letting him know I want to run high. Anyway, he makes that pass coming off of turn 2, tries to get down to the inside, continuing to run hard with George, but George is continuing to stay to his outside.
I feel like Thomas, he gave him the outside to start off the corner, and then he almost went straight into the corner. And I think if Krobach would have stayed to his outside, he would have put in the fence. Luckily for Krobach, this time by as they come off of turn 4, he's able to snatch that spot away. You saw a lot of lap cars there down the backstretch as they were too wide making that move. You saw Krobach just pipe up on the radio there, Kenny, and say, hey guys, stay out of the way.
Yeah, there was a couple cars coming out of the pits there. That can always be sketchy, but they did a nice job staying out of the way. Krobach makes the pass and looks to set his sights on Will Farmer, who's having a great run. Will Farmer Jr., that is, from 27th spot up to 4th place, and he's eyeballing Adam Jersky, trying to take that last podium spot.
Up towards the front of the field, Scott Eckrich has a 1.3 second lead over Jeff Ward, the man rounding out the podium, looking to go back-to-back podium finishes, this time in the 3rd position. Adam Jersky, after his win last week out in Phoenix. Just behind him, the driver Kenny was just mentioning, the 19 car of Will Farmer, and then that battle we were just looking at between Krobach and George. Krobach still holds on to that position. Chris Stouffer in 7th, Isaiah Dupre in 8th, Ryan Yazik in 9th, and Jordan Hardish for right now rounds out the top 10. 2-wide battle you can see on your screen. That's O'Connor in the 59 car. He's got Joe Branch, the 28 machine, down to his inside. This is a battle for 11th position.
Yeah, guys, before this race is over, a few laps left to go, I want to give a shout out to Cy Ferries. He's made it up. He's the first car lap down, but he's made it back up to 14th spot. We saw him start his own lawn service earlier, making multiple passes down through the infield grass. How he's been able to continue with the contact he's had and the off-track excursions, I don't know, but he's been able to stay in that 14th spot. So that's a really impressive run, a really impressive comeback.
Getting word here, Jake Sylvia has just left the session, so the driver of the 18 car has chosen to park his machine. So you got to wonder maybe if he was waiting for that 55 car to come around maybe one last time just to rough him up just a bit.
Yeah, things have certainly spread out here, and guys, just like that, we are down to the last 3 or so laps. This race has flown by, considering it being a 250 miler.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is usually one of the longer races of the season just because of how worn out the tires get and how much the lap times fall off over the course of a 50 or 40 lap run here. It can really take a toll on these drivers, both the physical but also the mental well-being, because this place can really do a number on you.
Yeah, it absolutely can, and it's typically a race where you'll get some long runs, but you also get a lot of cautions at some point once they start to happen, just because of how abrasive this track surface is, how easy it is to get the car out of shape. But for the most part tonight, these drivers have ran a fantastic race, keeping their cars under control. We've seen some action, we've seen some stuff happen, but for the most part, we've stayed green flag more than what I thought that we would tonight on this old Atlanta.
The battle you're seeing on your screen, this is between the 6 and the 7 cars for the 6th position. White flag in the air, last lap, 1 to go. Scott Eckridge just took the white flag. We'll see what he can do here for the rest of this lap. We'll continue to go back to that 6th place battle here once he finishes the race here, crosses the start-finish line. He's about to come off of turn 4 and take the checkered flag here at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the Everything Gets Better with Age 250, presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch. Checkered flag in the air for one Mr. Scott Eckridge here in Atlanta.
A great win for Scott. We're going to look back at the fantastic run back here with Thomas George. He's actually going to get that spot over Chris Stouffer. Stouffer actually losing a spot to Isaiah Dupre. So Stouffer will come home in 8th spot there, but Jeff Ward in 2nd. Adam Jersky continuing a great run with his win last week, finishing 3rd.
We're going to take a quick break while we let iRacing timing and scoring do its thing. When we come back, we're going to go through the entire finishing order and interview our top 3 finishers. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
Welcome back to the Everything Gets Better with Age 250, presented by GamingGuyL on Twitch, live from Atlanta Motor Speedway. You're watching, of course, the Virtual Grip Network. Guyle Brooks is a 39-year-old solid mid-pack driver with a tendency to hit balls on his own. He is an iRacing beta tester and has been sim racing since the youthful age of 6. You can catch Guyle streams at twitch.tv/gaming. Scott Eckridge just crossed the start-finish line here at the Old Atlanta, a track that really played into his hands, and I'm sure as well as the hands of the driver who finished in 2nd place, Jeff Ward. Came oh so close to leading, had to lead with about 15 or so laps to go, just couldn't quite hold on to it. In 3rd position, the driver that continues to run on a hot streak is Adam Jersky. Back-to-back 20s for him. He, of course, won last week out. in Phoenix. Michael Krobach finishes 4th for the second week in a row, misses out just barely on his chance to talk to his best buddy Kenny Kibbe. Will Farmer is going to come home to round out the top 5. Really strong run for him, followed by Thomas George, who finishes in 6th position. Azai Dupre, strong run for him today. He'll finish in 7th spot, followed by Chris Stouffer, who finishes in 8th. Brian Yazik, after getting together with the 18 car a couple times, lost the league. He's going to come home in 9th. Jordan Harnish is going to round out the top 10, followed by Joshua O'Connor in 11th position. Joe Branch is going to finish in 12th, followed by Creighton Carter in 13th. Cy Fair is strong all day long. Tried to roll the dice, was staying out, hoping for a caution there and try to catch most of the field one lap down. Not quite the case. He's going to come home in 14th position. Shane Parrish is going to finish in 15th, followed by Doug Roth in 16th. Cosmin Ioannidis in 17th, with Mike Rasmus in 18th. William Farmer is going to come home in 19th, and Jake Sylvia rounds out your top 20, JR.
Yeah, finishing in 21st tonight is Cody Dempster. We saw him have a lot of issues throughout this race. Kevin Bartelt, he's going to come home in 22nd. Had a fantastic run going, kind of got caught up in an accident, not of his doing. 23rd place tonight is Brian Greenlee. Joe Hassert, he'll come home in 24th. Hagen Gratz, we saw him lead some of this race very early. He'll finish in 25th. Vincent Crowe, the current points leader, having a rough night tonight, having the disconnect. He'll finish in 26th. Angel Jamie, he'll come home in 27th. Tim Weinkoff, 28th place tonight. Colton Salick, he'll come home in 29th. Alex Gretz, finishing 30th. Will George, he'll come home in 31st. Ryan Rose, he'll come home in 32nd place. And rounding out your field will be Woody Mahan in 33rd and probably going to be next week's pole sitter.
Thanks, JR. Standing by tonight here with our big winner, Scott Eckridge. Scott, it quite the turnaround from last week in terms of actually coming away with the darn checkered flag this time. Looked like you had a pretty darn good handle on it there for the largest part of today's race.
Yeah, not going to lie to you, I was definitely worried after that last pit stop, though. They kind of jumped a little further ahead than I thought they would, and I think if it wasn't for that lucky break I caught with all those, 4 or 5 cars in front of me kind of getting wadded up on the backstretch, and I just got them all in one straightaway. If that doesn't happen, I don't know. I could have got back to Jeff because he ran a really good race there.
I was just going to ask, what was the strategy there from your side, seeing all those guys continue to come down onto pit road? I was surprised just how much they undercut you there, but they did kind of come in quite a number of laps before you decided to make your final pit stop there, but it was the same thing you'd done to your credit earlier in the race, and you still came out with the lead.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks where you can definitely undercut, but with the aero the way it is, if you get stuck behind somebody, if you try to overcut it, you don't really get a lot of gains. So you got to kind of get lucky on that front. And there's just a lot of aero stuff here. You kind of have to play the aero games here to really do anything. So it's super fine line you got to run to not blow the right rear off, and also maintain the lead for those guys ripping the lip on the restarts and stuff.
Well, Scott, before I let you go, is there anyone you want to thank for your win tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the LPM guys and you guys up there for broadcasting this stuff every week. And everybody at the league for 2 cautions. That was awesome. So, we'll just look forward to going on to the next week here. Coda? That's good.
Yeah, what are your thoughts going into Coda? I mean, you were kind of the master of the road courses here last year.
I'm really hoping that's still the case. We got a few new faces, so I don't really know where we stand on the road course count these days. So it'll be interesting, especially starting at the very back because I did so good this week. So it's gonna be a ride.
Well, we'll see if you can go from worst to first, just like you did a couple times last season. Scott, congratulations on the victory, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That was Scott Eckridge, tonight's big winner. Jerry, I believe you caught up with our second place finisher, Mr. Jeff Ward.
Indeed, I have. Hey, Jeff, congratulations, man, on the second place run tonight, having to come from 32nd starting position. I want to get your take on how this race went for you, but more importantly, how you ran that first run. You were not in a big hurry to come through the field.
No, man, I knew. Well, first, congrats to Scott, man. Me and him's been battling for years, it seems like. We've had some good battles. He gets the best of me on a lot of them. He did it tonight. So, what a great racer, man. Hell of a driver. But, yeah, man, I knew tires were going to be big. There in practice, we did several 10, 15, 20-lap runs. I knew I wasn't going to get in a hurry at the beginning. I'm like 70 points, so I ain't even really going for stage points. I'm so far back. But I guess that ain't the best way to look at it, but last week it was so embarrassing just right hooking it in the fence. I came in here with zero momentum, and it's crazy how things can turn around. And, you know, just riding and finally find yourself in the top 5, and then I'm like, I got a pretty good car. I think I might have a chance to win the thing. So it was a real good turnaround, and got some momentum on our side now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to point out something you probably don't want to hear, but this is only your second top 10 of the season, and this is a second place finish. So you talk about not having momentum last week. You have it this week. How do you look to use that moving forward in this season?
Man, yeah, it's been a rough start so far, and I tell you, most of it's just trying to come from, 40th place every week or whatever it is. It's really tough to get up through there because when you start up front, you kind of learn that pace right off the bat, learn what the guys are doing, what you need to do to have that top 5 speed. So coming from the back, once you get up there, sometimes it's like, holy crap, I got some work to do. Yeah, it's been rough. I think this may be a turnaround for us here. We got a road course coming up. Hopefully a top 5 there. I feel pretty good at road courses. Not necessarily COTA, but we'll see what happens out there. Try to keep this momentum train going.
Absolutely, man. And last question I got for you, I've got to ask at the end of this race what your thoughts were on that strategy, and if you thought you were going to be able to hold off Scott. He was so dominant in this race and able to run anywhere he wanted to on this racetrack.
Hell, if I wouldn't have spent so much time looking at my relative, I might have been able to put a little more distance on him. But I kept looking down there like, if he gets hung up, I might have a chance here. Kind of mirror driving too much. I got held up once or twice there by, I don't remember who it was, but it cost us a little bit of time. But he was going to get there either way. He had way fresher tires. And on the long runs, he was a different zip code tonight, even on the run before that. So I knew it was going to be tough. We needed a little help, but I'll definitely take second, especially to my teammate, and we'll get out of here.
Absolutely, man. Before I let you go, who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
Yeah, I thank KUYU Ultralight Hunting Apparel. Thanks to you guys, as always, for doing the broadcast. Thanks to everybody there at LPM. Started out kind of crappy, but hopefully we can turn it around here. And, thanks to any friends and family watching.
Absolutely, Jeff. Definitely going to move up in the points this week. Congratulations again, man, on that second place run.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Guys, that was Jeff Ward, our second place finisher tonight. And with that, I believe Kenny's now caught up with last week's winner, our third place finisher this week, Adam Jersky.
Yeah, I have. Adam, huge momentum for you so far this season. You got 4 top 10s in 5 races. You got a win under your belt, and followed up with a podium run. Where's all this coming from?
I wish I knew today. I was not expecting this run today at all. I think I do all right here, but I was not expecting to get third, to finish behind Scott and Jeff. The first one behind them is not typical for me, so I wish I knew where it was coming from, because I would keep going back to it. But I'm just happy I'm getting good runs here, and coming with good speed, and hopefully it keeps up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And, you did get a little bit lucky grabbing that wave around after, but then also a little unlucky because you look like you're involved in the caution after you got that wave around, but looked to escape with minimal damage. But other than that, you're looking through your race replay was kind of relatively boring, but which is a good thing. It looked like you were just really smooth out there. And is that kind of smoothness and consistency what you focused on tonight?
Yeah, that was just about it. I think a big part of it was the pit entry. I felt I was really making good time on pit entry. I was pretty aggressive. All 3 green flag pit stops. I had the extra one because I was on the unfortunate end of the caution, but I really felt I was nailing all my braking points to get in the pit road. The one time I thought I almost got caught speeding, but luckily I didn't trigger it. But just being able to make up a second and a half on just pit entry is so huge here, especially when track position is at a premium. But yeah, me running a boring race, floating around 10th ish is always a good result. And I'm just glad I was able to get my way up to the front at the end.
And, coming into this, you were tied for 4th in points with Scott Eckrich, and he won the race, so he'll pull ahead of you a little bit. But all the other 3 ahead of you, you beat them tonight. But the one thing that they have more than you is bonus points. So as stage points and things like that, is that anything that's been running through your mind at all?
Oh, it for sure has. I think this is the first race that I've actually gotten stage points for. So I was pretty happy I was able to get up there and grab some stage points. I think just mix of starting towards the back of the pack, along with just not being the most aggressive guy in the world to get up there in the first place at the halfway point hurts me on the stage point front. But if you keep winning, keep getting top 5s, that will definitely lessen the lack of stage points. So I don't think I'm going to make any major play for stage points or change any strategy. It's just going to keep going after those good finishes at the end.
Well, formula's working out so far for you, but who would you like to thank for the run this evening?
Yeah, I got to thank Beef Jerski's Cheesecake Emporium for being on the car. Got to thank Mark back at the home office holding down the fort while I'm out here racing. Steel Horse Racing, Thomas George, and you guys for broadcasting the race. Appreciate it. And of course, Scott and Michael for putting this thing together. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Well, great start to your season, Adam, and a great run capped off tonight. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That was Adam Jerski, our 3rd place finisher tonight.
Well, guys, that was a pretty amazing race there. I got to say, I'm not too surprised we had good racing in Atlanta, but I am very surprised we had such great racing and only 2 cautions for an entirety of 163 laps here on this old, worn-out surface.
Yeah, definitely. These drivers showed how you get it done at a tough place like Atlanta tonight. Very few cautions, a lot of fantastic racing, but ultimately I think the big thing to take away is that we saw our 3 champions from last year really show up in this race more than they have in any race so far this season. So Scott Eckrich winning, Jeff Ward finishing 2nd, and Thomas George kind of going off strategy but still getting a 6th place finish. So you're starting to see our champions from last year making their presence known, trying to move back up in the points.
And I think for Scott Eckrich specifically, this is the perfect time for him to nab his first win of the season, because now we're headed to a road course, which has been historically his bread and butter. We know there's some new faces here in the league this year that could maybe put up a good fight, but Scott's been so dominant there. We'll have to start from the back, but we know he's capable of winning from anywhere. So perfect time for him to really jumpstart his season and grab the first win tonight.
Fantastic segue from the Circuit of the Americas. That's actually where we're going to be next week, Tuesday, March 28th. That stream is, as always, going to go live at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. This Friday, if you catch yourself with nothing to do, go ahead and tune in to the Virtual Group Network. This time, new start time, 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time for the brand new VRL Super Late Model Series. 200 laps in this time slot. Going to be pretty awesome. Sure to have lots of strategy involved as well. So make sure you tune into that one. This has been a pretty good production of the Virtual Grip Network. On behalf of myself, Austin Belkey, my booth mates J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe, our director Ryan Seneker, and everyone else behind the scenes at the Virtual Grip Network, thank you so much for watching, and good night.